I'm still Kim Wynn, as Donna had introduced me before. I'm really moved by the number of people in the room. So I'm just really clear that this organization does not exist, or we only exist, I should say, in your listening. So you show up and it actually gives us a purpose. So I just want to thank you, whatever capacity that you serve at your schools and or with children in Los Angeles, it really does make a difference, and it makes a difference that you're here today. So for us to have this many people here it's mind-blowing and makes our work worthwhile. So just a profound thank you, not just for me, but the entire committee, people that have at any point have been part of this organization over the 21 years. It really is an accomplishment, and I didn't want to step over that, so thank you. When our advisory committee got together, and I also want to say the advisory committee, we're self-selected. So you may be someone sitting in your seat that says, wow, that's really interesting. I might actually have something to contribute. You should see one of us. So we're people that saw something in this organization and give a little bit of time and develop ideas together and come out ridiculously elevated, and then just can't help but want to provide materials for all of you. So we got together, as we always do during the summer, to look at planning the year, and we challenged ourselves. Because we know that there are certain needs that we can meet and certain places we can go, but we actually challenged ourselves to say, what if we thought about things newly, a little bit differently? If we looked at a new way to reframe the way we normally do things in regards to service learning. So what would it actually look like to reframe something? So that's our context for the year, and we're challenging you to actually develop a new frame to which you look through. So for example, if you think of like frames, like eyeglasses, that's one way you see a certain vision through that. Well, we're actually asking you to consider if you change those glasses and developed a new frame to be your service learning practice, or your role as an educator, or your role as an administrator, or your role working with kids in whatever way that you do. Just consider that there may be something that you haven't seen before, and use ECSL to help uncover that blind spot. So we're here to look at new frameworks, and we're going to have lots of opportunities and ways to do that. While we were looking and challenging ourselves with new frames, this word echoes came up. We started talking about ripples, and then it became echoes. And we're like, wow, echoes. What if there actually was a reverberation to the work that we're doing? And if you take it to your personal level, looking at the work that you do with your students or at your schools, how can you create that kind of impact? So I got home and I'm like, that sounds inspiring and I kind of don't get it. So what I normally do is when I don't know something, I still go to the dictionary and I did some research on echoes. And the first thing I could think of was, well actually I'll ask you, when you think of echoes and you were going to go look up who or what on our planet perhaps relate to echoes, or the echo in a powerful way, what would you think of? Yes! So I couldn't think of anything else besides that, other than I used to work at a phenomenal school called Echo Horizon, but then I didn't think that I couldn't really kind of just come up and talk about that school. So I researched bats a little bit. And what I learned was bats have a unique wing structure. And that's what actually gives them flight. So now just take a moment and envision a bat. Or imagine you're a bat. And you have a unique wing structure which gives you flight. Your students do too. You've influenced that. Then, getting to the echo part, but I thought that was fascinating, that you need to have the foundation of what actually elevates you or gives you flight, actually lifts you, or provides maneuverability in some way. That has to be established. And that is part of what ECSL does. It provides that foundation and establishes a certain level so you can take flight and bring that back to your students. It's crucial to the bat's survival that that's intact. It's critical to our effectiveness in the classroom that that's intact. The echo part, echolocation, it is a navigation system. It's the bat's GPS. And it actually helps a bat find their prey in the dark. It can determine where objects are, the size of the object, and the direction that the object is moving. So having said all of that, that actually consider is your role. Of actually to have a sense of finding your prey, or your content, or your students, or navigating parent conversations at any time. knowing how to navigate through those and to find the direction that you need to go. To determine where objects are, what are the resources and tools that you need? At any given time, you need to get your hands on that. The direction that another object is moving in. Where are you in relationship to other teachers, to your students, to their families, to other schools, and even outside of your school? What's your relationship to them? They process, the back processes, all of this unconsciously. So it's just ingrained, it's part of their genetic makeup, they can't function without it. I assert it's also part of our genetic makeup as teachers, or administrators, or parents, that it's unconscious. You develop a level of mastery, and then you get to the point where I know this lesson, I know exactly where I need to go, I know who is in the room, I know where I'm going to take them, I know what, I might not know what they're always going to bring to me, but I actually have some direction, and after a while, I throw away everything I plan on paper or typed up, and I just trust that I know what to deliver at any given time, or I trust my students to take me where I need to go. Now, I was a teacher, I'm not a teacher anymore, I left the classroom. Actually, I take that back. I'm always a teacher, so, and I'm proud to say that, but teaching was a career change for me. I taught for over 10 years. I taught 4th grade and 6th grade, and I'm now a consultant. So I've taken the work that I do and found a way to elevate it and to make a bigger impact. It wasn't just in my classroom, but wanted to find ways to impact many. Echolocation, so that's the context, is echoes. It's not enough to just reach one student, or to just reach your students. What's the reverberation that you're actually creating? Now, it does have to be conscious, and then after a while, you let it have its own life. So we're interested in today is actually that new frame. Actually, how can you elevate your teaching and your service learning practice? How can you take whatever you're providing in your classroom beyond the students, and to perhaps have the students then connect to their communities, and then have the students with their communities connect to the world? So it actually takes it away from just an individual, I'm the teacher impacting my students, I'm actually impacting something much larger than that. And especially using service learning, you're impacting cause. And you are the direct catalyst for bringing that into your classroom. We're not interested in an end result here. The 5 stages of service learning, which we'll certainly touch on while we're here, and especially for those of you that are new to service learning, it's never meant to be prescriptive or to get to the end result. They're not actually even the linear stages, but they're meant to inform your practice. So today, we invite you as you listen to the conversations that we're going to have and really ask for your participation to really look at it newly. Not the way you did it last year or the way you saw someone else do it, but listen newly like you haven't heard this before. You actually haven't heard me say this before, and I haven't been in the room with all of you before, so it is new. So if we take on looking at it newly, develop a new frame in which we can operate inside of our practice, and then really look at how can we magnify our impact. We're going to see a video in a few minutes that shows a really beautiful example of how a classroom actually went from one very specific intention, and it went a whole different direction, but the impact went from student to community to world. And that really can happen through service learning pretty automatically. It really is one of the intended results. So that's the context. And if you got nothing from what I said, totally fine. But just remember a new frame and echoes. That's really what we're focusing on here today. So our first experience in actually looking at a new frame is I'm just going to divide the room right down the middle. So you're all on one side, and you all are on another side. And you're going to work at your tables. Let's say in groups of 4, looking at the size of the tables. If it's not exactly 4, it's fine. But roughly 4. And if you're on this side, you actually with your partner are going to define service learning. Whether you have the textbook definition or you've heard about it, read about it, doesn't matter, but you're going to work to just come up with your own definition. Now, not the one from the past, the one that you memorized or heard about at the last meeting, but really, what's your relationship to it now? So create that newly. You, on the other hand, are going to create a definition for community service. And so work with the people in small groups and just come up with that. I'm going to stop you. You're only going to do this for about 2 minutes. And then we'll check in with you. So community service definition, service learning definition. Any questions? Awesome. Wrap up your thoughts. So, someone on this side who's willing to share a definition that you came up with your group, and if you wouldn't mind just standing for the sake of everyone can hear you, and say your name and where you come from so we all get to know you.
Awesome. My name is Christine Kellum. I'm from the Wesley School in North Hollywood. Welcome. This is the first time for me. And we discuss service learning. Service learning is empowerment of children to become lifelong social advocates, and we spoke about reflection as well and how that's a really important piece of it.
Awesome, thanks. One more service learning definition. I get called on you.
I'm Amy, I'm from Wynn Elementary School, and we identify service learning as a project that serves an authentic community need, and then it's identified by the students, and that it's mutually beneficial.
Beautiful, thanks. Community service. What did you come up with as a definition of community service?
I'm Lindy. I'm from Milken. We talked about the distinction between community service and service learning, specifically that community service was more about the receiver getting from the experience as opposed to it being a mutual, like the definition that was just shared.
Awesome, thank you. Lindy, right?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. One more community service definition. You did it right and you have the right answer, I promise. How about somebody from this table right here?
I'll read our little post here. Okay.
Thanks.
I'm Stephanie from Campbell Hall. We were talking about, so we made like a list. We talked about community service being a one-way interaction, providing a service, often having negative connotations or filling requirements a number of hours, and limited personal relevance to the person, to maybe the one-time interaction.
Great. So thank you for everyone that chose to stand up in a room full of people that you don't know, and clear that it does take something to be up at the front. So we just wanted to lay that groundwork in the beginning, because we are here to talk about service learning, and it is distinct from community service. One is not better than the other. One is not right, one is not wrong. They just are distinct. And you want to be clear that as you're planning experiences at your schools and in your classroom, you're clear about what you're creating. Because we often say we're doing one thing, and we actually haven't really examined it thoroughly to actually know we're meeting what we're intending to meet. So whatever you choose, sometimes it's absolutely appropriate to say we're going to just do X, and it's a straight up community service experience. And other times you're going to say, wow, we want to explore it in this way, and it's absolutely appropriate to take on a service learning experience. So we just wanted to lay the groundwork here. And everyone that shared, you really did cover it. So this is not meant to be a definition you should memorize, but it is components that you should be very familiar with. So as you design your own service learning experiences in your classroom, you're clear about what you're creating. Donna mentioned Kathy Berger-Kay. Her book, The Complete Guide to Service Learning, is really a Bible to actually not only define things, but give you some concrete examples, lesson plan ideas, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you do take a look at it. Anne is displaying it in the back of the room. You can certainly see one of us. We can put you in touch with Kathy to order it, but a lot of the information that we talk about is influenced by Kathy's work, and then we build on it, but a lot of it is in the book, and we highly recommend you take a look at it. But service learning, the bottom line is it does occur when students, they connect academics or classroom learning or learning of any kind, and they connect it with an authentic community need. I see some people writing. So I'll repeat it because you think that you want to make sure that you get it. So I promise whatever you wrote is going to be perfect because it really is more that you get it and you can digest it, then you get the right words. But it's when students connect academics or learning with an authentic community need, which means they're involved in the process. Another way of saying is there's youth voice and there's youth choice. It deals more with knowing things, but it's intrinsically knowing them. It provides purpose or context to learning. It's relevant and it's meaningful. There are 5 stages of service learning. I'm just going to briefly say them. We're not actually going to go through them in depth in this meeting, but please feel free to see any of us if you want a little tutorial. But it's also in the book. But the first stage of service learning is investigation. So remember, you're listening to this as distinct from community service. And investigation is the questions. What's around me? Let me get curious. So it literally is the questioning stage. What are the needs? But before you even go outside the classroom to examine the community needs, you want to know what's in the classroom. So you get curious about who's in the room, what skills do they have, what interests, what talents do the students have, including you. The second one is preparation and planning. That's where your academics and content are going to come in. Action is doing. It's active. And there's different types of action, so you want to get clear about what's the type of action that we're actually, is it going to be a direct action? Is it going to be an indirect action? Are we providing advocacy in some way, or are we just straight up doing research? So it's being very intentional. Reflection. It sounds like, by the way, I'm going in an order. These are not meant to be in an order. So it's a list of things that make up service learning. Reflection is the pause button. It happens throughout, not just for the students, but for teachers, administrators, parents as well. So it's reflecting. What did I learn there? What new ideas do I have there? How can I express that? How can I apply that? Where am I right now? It's just a skill, by the way. I've taken reflection from when I was a teacher. It really is one of the most important things in my marriage. Really? How are things going right now? How did I listen in that conversation? Where am I? What was missing? What's next? So these really do make a difference outside of the classroom. The last one is demonstration. And last, I don't mean, again, the last stage that you should hit. It's just the last one on my list. It's not what you learned, but it's how you learned it. And you can actually document that throughout. So it starts from the beginning. So reflection and demonstration go around and around and around. And I noticed a number of you have opened up your packet. In the packet that you have with the yellow agenda on the top, if you flip to, I think it's like the 3rd page, it's outlined. There's like there's a graphic organizer there, and it lays them out so you can reference them, and they're all defined for you. I just gave you the Cliff Note version. So service, or community service, you don't necessarily find the meaning behind the service. It really is, you identify something, and then you take the action required, and it's a completion. It's usually extrinsically driven. It sometimes is required. Hours required, I mean. And there isn't always time for reflection. And it serves a purpose. It's really important. Sometimes you're just going to straight out do a canned food drive. That's it. Just get clear, though, that that's what you're doing, and don't mask it as service learning. It really is the, no, I'm not actually going to embed learning in there. There's not going to be a lot of reflection. We're not going to go through the stages. This is something we're in and out of in a couple days, and we're just supplying a need or an item or something for someone who needs it. Totally appropriate. In a lot of organizations really want students to impact them in that way, and we're just challenging you to actually consider what's beyond that. You can actually take your learning in the classroom and add a whole bunch of meaning to it. That's just the basics, and that's the tone of the meeting.